Coexisting with a feline companion is a perpetual journey of delightful discoveries, as these graceful creatures embody unpredictability and wield a unique, often subtle, arsenal of expressive means, shaping their distinctive body language. If fate has led you to share your life with a purring partner, you've undoubtedly witnessed their peculiar actions and mannerisms, each invariably sparking a stream of questions and genuine curiosity. What truly motivates them to behave in such ways? What profound, hidden reasons lie behind these sometimes whimsical, even eccentric manifestations of their deep nature? Today, we invite you to embark on a captivating and insightful exploration into the fathomless realm of feline enigmas, as we attempt to meticulously examine a series, 14 to be precise, of the most perplexing and occasionally bizarre behaviors regularly exhibited by our four-legged housemates. Our goal is to unravel step by step the authentic significance of each of these astonishing and multifaceted expressions of their inner world. Prepare to unveil the secrets behind the underlying motives that drive these charming yet endlessly enigmatic creatures. Among the vast array of their truly remarkable and often inscrutable traits, the first aspect that frequently leaves owners baffled, even dumbfounded, is their particular approach to eating. Your furry companion might vehemently demonstrate an ardent, irresistible desire for a tasty supplement to their main diet, or even a full portion of their daily food, purposefully heading towards their bowl and, with every gesture, expressing absolute undeniable hunger. However, upon receiving the coveted and long-awaited treat, they might only sniff the offering slightly, barely touching it, or perhaps attempt a tentative taste with the tip of their tongue, and then, to your utter astonishment and disappointment, instantly and irrevocably lose all interest, simply sauntering away, leaving the food virtually or completely untouched. This behavior, which might seem utterly illogical, unmotivated, or even outright capricious at first glance, may, in reality, serve as a veiled signal, pointing to needs or desires that are entirely separate from physiological hunger. A recent large-scale scientific study, initiated by highly qualified specialists from the world-renowned University of Vienna, has shed further light on this complex issue, revealing a fascinating and previously unobvious connection. For felines, the very act of receiving food is intrinsically linked, on a deep emotional level, to expressions of care, love, and genuine attention from their caregivers, that is, their owners. In their profound instinctual perception of the world, being fed equates to being loved, cared for, and cherished. Consequently, if your feline companion suddenly, for no apparent reason, requires an extra dose of your precious attention, affection, tenderness, or simply tangible reassurance of your profound attachment and devotion, they might resort to this unique, quintessentially feline method of attracting your attention, requesting a small snack or treat, thereby prompting the desired, anticipated reaction from you. However, it is crucially important to meticulously monitor such displays and their frequency. If your beloved pet suddenly, and without any visible, obvious reason, completely loses their usual, previously insatiable interest in their favorite treats, or even their regular everyday food, which they previously devoured with great appetite, this could be a very alarming, urgent signal, directly indicating potential underlying health issues. In such a critical situation, it is imperative to seek professional advice from a qualified veterinarian without delay, as a sudden, sharp loss of appetite is often one of the first early symptoms of a serious illness or pathological condition requiring immediate diagnosis and treatment. Moving on to another equally enigmatic aspect of feline nature, one that also often baffles and puzzles inexperienced owners. We cannot overlook the sudden, unprovoked bursts of seemingly boundless, explosive energy. At times, in moments of complete tranquility, While observing your peacefully slumbering pet, you might suddenly witness a truly dizzying, mind-boggling spectacle. In the blink of an eye, for no apparent reason or external trigger, your cat takes off like a shot, launching with astonishing, unbelievable speed, as if covering hundreds of miles per hour in outer space, and begins to frantically, erratically dash through all the rooms of your dwelling, performing unimaginable pirouettes and maneuvers, only to stop just as suddenly and instantly in the middle of the room, freezing in place as if nothing happened, with a completely unruffled demeanor. This entirely unexpected, sometimes even frightening behavior, often affectionately and somewhat ironically referred to as zoomies or cat frenetic random activity periods, FRAPs, is most often associated with a buildup of unspent, unrealized energy that suddenly, like a compressed spring, finds its spontaneous release. Cats, regardless of how domesticated they are or how many generations they have spent alongside humans, remain, at their core, innate, perfect predators, having inherited the ancient primal instincts of their wild ancestors who roamed the natural world. The irresistible urge to hunt, patiently stalk prey, and swiftly pursue it is ingrained in their nature at the deepest genetic level. From time to time, they experience an overwhelming inner desire to actively practice and fulfill these natural ingrained instincts, even if their figurative prey at the moment is merely a small toy mouse, a beam of sunlight dancing on the wall, or even an invisible speck of dust floating in the air. If, during the day, the animal has not had sufficient, adequate opportunities for active play, physical exertion, and purposeful realization of its powerful hunting instincts through structured play activity, these sudden, rapid bursts can serve as a sort of release, a way to discharge this accumulated, unrealized energy, as if mimicking a short but incredibly intense chase or a sudden, explosive start from an ambush. In addition to a strong internal drive, such turbulent, uncontrolled activity can be triggered by an unexpected, atypical external factor. For example, a barely perceptible scent of another animal wafting in from outside, captured by their highly sensitive hearing, which is capable of perceiving sounds in a range inaccessible to humans, or an unusual sharp noise that has gone completely unnoticed and unheard by the human ear. It should always be remembered and taken into account that cats' hearing is incomparably better, far more refined than our own, and their amazing ability to perceive high frequencies and incredibly quiet sounds far surpasses human capabilities. Your cat, during such a zoomy episode, may simply be reacting lightning fast to the faint squeak of a small rodent somewhere far behind the wall, or to a barely discernible movement of a bird seen through the window pane. These minimal signals from the outside can easily become the trigger for an explosive, uncontrolled release of accumulated energy. Another common, seemingly mundane act of feline behavior, which nonetheless conceals far deeper and more significant meanings than may be apparent to the casual observer, is the act of burying their own excrement. The human mind, prone to simplification and rationalization, often tends to associate this act solely with cleanliness and hygiene, and in part, this interpretation is certainly valid and corresponds to reality. However, the true underlying reasons for this behavior are actually far more multifaceted and are rooted in the wild, where the instincts of our domestic companions' ancestors were forged. Although, to our human sense of smell, cat feces may smell more or less similar regardless of the individual, cats themselves possess a truly unique, exquisite ability to infallibly distinguish their own waste from the waste products of other animals. This ability is due to the presence of special, individual chemical markers in their waste, pheromones, which, incidentally, are also present in their urine and are used for marking territory and identification. In the wild, untamed environment, cats instinctively bury their excrement to minimize the strong odors emanating from it and thereby successfully avoid attracting the attention of potential dangerous predators that could easily track them down using the scent trail they leave behind. In addition, this act serves as another important way to avoid alerting potential, elusive prey to the fact that a dangerous and skillful hunter from the cat family is lurking nearby in ambush. Despite the fact that modern domestic cats, in most cases, do not face the pressing need to actively hunt for their own sustenance and are not subject to the constant, daily risk of being attacked by large wild predators, they nevertheless fully retain the same deep, age-old instincts of survival, self-preservation, and territorial defense, which are passed down from generation to generation at the genetic level. Thus, the habit of diligently burying their feces is a direct, undeniable manifestation of this inherited ancient behavior, aimed primarily at effectively concealing their presence and at symbolically denoting their status in the invisible hierarchical structure, especially if there are multiple animals living in the house or on the property. Analogous to how they treat their waste products, cats may also instinctively bury any uneaten food left over after a meal. The goal in this case remains exactly the same: to conceal their trail, their location, and to avoid attracting either potentially dangerous predators or potential prey to the site of their recent presence, which could be instantly spooked by the strong odor of stale leftovers. It is important to dispel the widespread but entirely erroneous and misleading belief that a cat normally and naturally buries food with the intention of returning to it later to finish it. This is categorically incorrect. Cats are not scavengers, and this action is dictated solely by the ancient powerful instinct to conceal their location and the results of their activity. Continuing our fascinating exploration of the complex and multifaceted body language of our whiskered furry friends, we inevitably come to one of the most touching, endearing, and at the same time most often misunderstood expressions of their sincere trust, boundless devotion, and deep affection. The moment when a cat, upon seeing you or sensing your presence, instantly rolls over on its back and presents you with its soft, completely vulnerable belly. Have you ever seriously considered why they do this? Human instinct, often misinterpreting feline signals, very often suggests to us that in this unambiguous way, the animal is inviting us to scratch its tummy. And many, unfortunately, make the serious mistake of trying to do just that. However, paradoxically, most cats actually absolutely, utterly dislike being touched on their stomach, or having this area massaged by strangers, or even beloved owners. If your cat demonstratively lies on its back and exposes its belly right in front of you, this is primarily its unique, very personal, exclusively feline way of greeting you and expressing its joy at seeing you. They are sincerely, unspeakably happy to see you after a separation, and are most likely eagerly hoping to receive, in response to their greeting, a bit of your precious attention, a kind, encouraging word, a small treat, or gentle, prolonged petting, but certainly not in the zone where you think their invitation lies. Although your feline friend is definitely in the mood for the most positive interaction with you at this moment, and wants to spend some time in your pleasant company, the position on its back with its fully exposed, unprotected belly, despite your human irresistible urge to scratch it, is by no means a direct invitation to touch it in this most vulnerable zone. The abdominal region in cats is an exceptionally hypersensitive part of the body, and it is also one of the most vulnerable, least protected zones, since it is precisely there, under the soft abdominal wall, that vital, critical internal organs are located, requiring the greatest degree of protection from any external influences and potential damage. In the wild, where danger lurks at every turn, exposing the belly is tantamount to complete, absolute disarmament in the face of a deadly threat. Thus, if your four-legged, whiskered friend rolls over right in front of you, openly exposing its belly. This is not simply a formal greeting or an invitation to play, but an expression of the deepest, absolute trust and a feeling of complete, all-encompassing safety in your presence. This is a clear, unambiguous demonstration of the fact that the cat feels so confident, calm, and protected around you that it can afford to adopt the most vulnerable, unprotected pose, completely relaxed. This is the highest, most valuable expression of trust that a cat can bestow upon you. But to perceive it as a direct permission to carelessly stroke or scratch the belly would be deeply wrong and could lead to misunderstanding or even irritation on the part of the animal. Another fundamental and deeply instinctive feline behavior, which very often causes a great deal of trouble and inconvenience to their owners in everyday life, but is absolutely necessary and vital for the animal itself, is the irresistible urge and need to scratch. Cats scratch for a number of compelling reasons, each of which is equally important for their physical and psychological well-being. Firstly, it is an essential physiological need, dictated by their very nature. In this way, they regularly remove the dead, old outer layers from the surface of their claws, constantly maintaining their sharpness, optimal length, and overall health. Secondly, the act of scratching allows them to qualitatively and fully stretch and effectively warm up their bodies, engaging important muscle groups in the process, which in turn contributes to maintaining excellent physical fitness and flexibility. Thirdly, it can serve as an effective way to release accumulated excess energy or successfully cope with emotional stress and tension. But perhaps the most common, fundamental, and important reason is marking, clearly defining their territory. Cats scratch purposefully not only to leave a clear, highly visible visual mark, which is easily noticeable to other animals, but also, and perhaps even more significantly, a powerful olfactory mark. On the pads of their paws are specialized scent glands that secrete a unique, unrepeatable secretion containing pheromones for each particular cat. By leaving their individual scent on a certain area of space or object, whether it is a favorite scratching post specifically designed for this purpose, the corner of an expensive sofa, or the rough trunk of a tree outside, they are thereby unambiguously marking it as their own, inalienable territory, confidently asserting their absolute rights to this particular space. Thus, scratching is a completely normal, natural, deeply instinctive behavior for all cats, and it is vital for maintaining both their physical health, including the condition of their claws, muscle tone, and their psychological well-being, a sense of territorial security, stress relief. Addressing such an important topic as the health of our pets, we cannot ignore such an unpleasant, but unfortunately sometimes inevitable, aspect of keeping cats as vomiting. The reasons why a cat may vomit are extremely diverse and numerous. The main factors provoking this condition range from relatively harmless and not requiring particular concern to extremely serious, requiring immediate veterinary assistance and intervention. Among them may be an incorrectly selected, unbalanced diet that does not meet the needs of the animal, eating something completely inedible or harmful, such as a piece of string, elastic band, small plastic toy parts, or even houseplants, having a food allergy or individual intolerance to certain food components, developing an infection in the gastrointestinal tract or other body systems, the occurrence of inflammatory processes in organs, various diseases of the urinary tract, such as serious disease as diabetes, or even just a sudden, too sharp, ill-considered change in the usual diet without a proper, gradual transition. A separate and at the same time very common cause of vomiting in cats are hairballs, or, as they are also commonly called in veterinary medicine, bezoars. In the process of daily scrupulous self-care, which occupies a significant part of their waking hours, tiny structures with numerous hook-shaped protrusions on the surface of the cat's rough tongue catch and capture shed dead hair, which is then inevitably swallowed. Most of this swallowed hair, as a rule, safely and without problems, passes through the entire digestive tract and is successfully eliminated from the body naturally. However, some of the hair may remain in the stomach, gradually accumulating day after day, and eventually forming a dense, solid ball. Often, the cat's body reacts to the prolonged presence of this indigestible object by vomiting. This is a kind of protective mechanism, a natural way to get rid of the hairball, which causes constant discomfort, irritation of the stomach walls, or prevents normal, full digestion. To minimize the formation of hairballs as much as possible and provide your furry pet with the necessary assistance, you can take several simple but effective steps. Regularly, ideally daily, carefully comb the cat, thereby removing excess shedding, dead hair before it is swallowed, and also consider adding to its daily diet specialized pastes or foods designed specifically for this purpose and containing an increased amount of fiber, which contributes to a lighter and unhindered passage of hair through the intestines. It is important to dispel the widespread, but at the same time completely erroneous and extremely dangerous misconception that it is supposedly normal and not scary for a cat to vomit once a week. This is categorically untrue, is a dangerous myth, and can lead to ignoring serious health problems. While occasional episodic vomiting a few times a year or a rare discharge of a hairball, not accompanied by any other alarming symptoms, such as loss of appetite, lethargy, changes in stool, are considered acceptable variations of the norm. Regular, weekly vomiting is an unconditionally alarming, serious signal directly indicating the presence of a hidden health problem that requires immediate, urgent intervention by a qualified veterinary specialist. In such cases, your pet is likely suffering from some disease or condition that requires thorough diagnosis and subsequent treatment, and delaying treatment can be dangerous. One of the most significant and pronounced differences in approaches to social interaction between humans and cats is their innate, deep need for independence, autonomy, and the availability of their own personal space. Unlike the vast majority of dogs who sincerely strive to be constantly near their owner, literally following in their footsteps and participating in all of their affairs without exception, cats are creatures that are very self-sufficient and independent by their very nature. They absolutely do not like being smothered by an excess of intrusive, demonstrative love and excessive attention, and they absolutely need to be alone from time to time, to remain in silence and peace, or simply to be near you, but exclusively on their own terms, without entering into active, forced interaction. If your cat does not react when you call it by name, or seems to completely ignore you, pretending not to hear, you should not immediately perceive this as a manifestation of dislike, disrespect, or intentional disobedience. It is quite possible that it is simply in a comfortable place for itself, curled up comfortably on its favorite chair, blissfully dozing on a warm windowsill under the gentle rays of the sun, or simply nestled comfortably somewhere to the side, watching what is happening, and sees absolutely no compelling, sufficient reason to interrupt its occupation, interrupt its rest, or change its location in order to come to you at the first call, like a dog. In such a situation, the most reasonable and correct thing you can do is simply leave it alone, without insisting on immediate contact and interaction. Showing respect for your cat's personal space and innate independence is one of the key aspects that underlie strong, harmonious, and trusting relationships between you. Paradoxical as it may sound, but by showing such an understanding of their needs and giving them the opportunity to be alone with themselves when they want to, you will certainly earn their sincere gratitude. And ultimately, your cat will value and love you much more strongly and devotedly than if you constantly tried to force it to give you its attention and show affection against its own will. Returning to the subtleties of cat body language, it is necessary to mention another gesture that is very often misinterpreted by people: the arched, humped back. Although some people, misunderstanding the signals transmitted by the animal, mistakenly believe that a cat taking such a characteristic pose is demonstrating obvious aggression, hostility, and is preparing for a rapid attack. This, as a rule, is completely untrue and is a deep delusion. A cat arching its back in a high hump and simultaneously actively ruffling its fur all over its body. This becomes especially noticeable on the back and tail, which in this case also often becomes fluffy, becoming similar to a brush. Usually does this because it is very frightened or feels a real or imagined threat from someone or something. By arching its back and puffing up its fur as much as possible, thereby increasing its visible volume, the animal seeks to appear significantly larger, more massive, and accordingly, more threatening in the eyes of its potential opponent or source of fear. This is a typical defensive reaction, designed primarily to scare away or at least clearly warn the object causing fear of its readiness to defend itself. This characteristic pose may be accompanied by loud hissing, low growling, or ears pressed to the head, which unambiguously indicates strong fear, panic, and absolute readiness to defend itself rather than an intention to attack first. Sometimes, in the process of close interaction with a cat, you may unexpectedly encounter another, less pleasant, but quite common manifestation of their behavior: bites. Cats can bite for several diverse, sometimes unobvious reasons, and it is important to understand them in order to respond correctly and adequately in each specific case. Sometimes a bite serves as a very specific, functional way to stop unwanted actions or behaviors on the part of a person or other animals from the cat's point of view. For example, when you try to do something that is unpleasant to it, causes discomfort or even pain, trim its claws, give it bitter medicine, fix it for examination, or just stroke it too long in the same place, especially if this place is sensitive or vulnerable to touch, like the abdomen we mentioned earlier. Cats may well bite to express their deep affection, tenderness, and love in this peculiar way, but in this case, the bites are usually very soft, cautious, and perfectly controlled by the animal. More like a light bite or pinching, not causing pain. If your cat, in the heat of the game, carried away by the process, overdoes it a little, accidentally biting or scratching you, this is most likely just an unfortunate accident arising from strong excitement and emotional tension, since the active game itself is an important sign of love, trust, and a clear desire to interact with you. Of course, a cat's bite can also be a clear manifestation of aggression aimed at causing harm. But rest assured, you will easily understand the significant difference between an aggressive, malicious bite and the so-called love bite. Aggressive biting, as a rule, is always accompanied by obvious signs of hostility, strong fear, or irritation. Hissing, low growling, a tense, pressed-to-the-ground pose, ruffled fur, ears pressed tightly to the head, and dilated pupils. Finally, a cat's bite can be a kind of form of communication, an unconventional way to ask you for something. If the cat lightly, barely touching, bites you and then attempts to lead you to some activity or a specific item, for example, to an empty food bowl, to the front door, unambiguously hinting at a strong desire to go outside, or to its favorite toy, inviting you to play, this may be exactly such a reason. Instead of just meowing and hoping to be heard, they use tactile impact, a light bite, to most effectively draw your attention to their request or desire. The next amazing and meaningful feline behavior that we can observe is licking. Cats may lick you for a number of reasons, each of which carries its own special, unique meaning in their complex and not fully understood language of communication. First, it is one of the direct, obvious ways to show you their deep affection, boundless love, and also express their concern for your well-being. In the complex, hierarchical cat world, mutual licking is a very important element of social connections, an effective way to strengthen relationships within the group and show concern for the health and cleanliness of a member of the pack. And by extending this behavior to a person, the cat thereby automatically includes you in the closest circle of their loved ones, accepting you as part of their family. The behavior of a cat, when it gently licks you, is often reinforced by positive, expected reactions from you. Laughter, a smile, reciprocal, gentle strokes, or gentle, encouraging words. Receiving such pleasant feedback, your cat feels encouraged and receives a powerful incentive to repeat this action in the future, since any kind of your attention, positive reaction is extremely valuable and important for it. However, it should also be known that excessive obsessive licking, directed both at you and, which is especially alarming, at oneself, licking the fur until bald spots are formed, is often a clear sign of severe stress, increased anxiety, nervous tension, or even boredom. For cats, as for many other types of animals, ritual licking is a kind of proven mechanism of self-soothing, an effective way to reduce the overall level of stress and feel more comfortable, confident in a difficult, unfamiliar, or potentially dangerous situation. And one more important reason for licking is, oddly enough, territorial marking. Licking is an effective way to leave your individual, unique scent on an object or creature. Your cat instinctively wants other cats or animals that may potentially be nearby. Even if this happens extremely rarely, the ancient instinct remains active, to know exactly that this is its territory, and this particular person is its property, its integral part. By licking you, they are, in essence, unambiguously declaring to all potential competitors, "This owner is mine. I left my unique scent on them. They belong to me, so don't come close to them. They are occupied." If your cat has come to choose you as the ideal, most comfortable place to sleep and relax, this also has a number of important and quite explainable reasons. There are several reasons why cats prefer to sleep directly on their owners, or cuddling up tightly to them. Firstly, cats, being heat-loving creatures, feel comfortable at a significantly higher ambient temperature than humans, approximately 20 degrees Celsius above the ideal, comfortable temperature for humans. Therefore, when the temperature around turns out to be lower than their preferred, optimal one, your cat will instinctively look for the most cozy, warmest place to effectively maintain their optimal body temperature. And your warm body is an excellent, living, mobile source of heat and comfort. Secondly, sleeping directly on the owner, or next to them, gives the cat an incomparable feeling of absolute, all-encompassing safety. In the wild, lying or sleeping makes the animal most vulnerable to attack by predators, because at this moment it is least able to react quickly and effectively to a suddenly emerging danger. Sleeping on a person whom the cat fully, limitlessly trusts and in whom it feels protection provides it with a reliable sense of security, as well as the necessary warmth and comfort, critically important for deep, full, and peaceful sleep. They feel completely safe, knowing that you, their protector, are very close. Thirdly, cats sleep on you to show you their deep affection, tender love, and devotion. Although they may seem very independent, self-reliant, and self-sufficient creatures, in reality, they sincerely miss you when you are away from home for a long time, at work or on business, and when you finally return, it is completely natural for them, physically and emotionally, to want to cuddle up to you, make up for lost time, and feel your warmth and closeness again, which is very often realized precisely through joint sleep, dozing, or simply close physical presence. Another aspect of cat body language, which we can observe almost constantly daily, is closely related to their amazing eyes, namely, to the rapid and significant change in the size of their pupils. Why do cats' pupils dilate so much, so instantly? In the wild, cats actively and successfully use the night darkness as the ideal time for hunting and ensuring their safety. By expanding their pupils to the maximum possible size, cats are able to capture even the smallest amount of available light, letting it into the eye, which allows them to see much better, clearer, and farther in low-light conditions compared to humans, whose night vision is significantly inferior to that of cats. During the day, in bright light, their pupils, on the contrary, narrow to narrow slits, thereby regulating the amount of light falling on the sensitive retina, depending on its intensity, from almost invisible strips in bright sunlight to wider ones in cloudy weather. However, what is particularly interesting and important to understand, cats also actively use their eyes, and in particular pupil size, as a very important part of their complex and multifaceted body language, to silently communicate their current mood, emotional state, and even the presence of health problems. As a rule, under normal moderate lighting in the room, the pupils of a healthy, calm cat should not be perfectly round and maximally dilated, like saucers. If you notice that your cat's pupils are constantly dilated, although the lighting in the room is quite sufficient and bright, this may indicate with a high degree of probability that your cat is not fully relaxed, is tense, or is experiencing the effects of some strong external or internal stimulus. This may mean that your cat is experiencing stress, severe anxiety, is in a state of strong excitement, for example, just before the start of an active game or hunt, is experiencing fear, or even experiencing physical pain or discomfort. Cats also very often experience pronounced dilation of the pupils during the estrus cycle, which is closely related to active hormonal changes in the body. In situations that give the cat undoubted pleasure and cause positive emotions, for example, when it has just eaten its favorite, especially tasty food, or received a long-awaited portion of tender affection and attention, the pupils may also dilate reflexively as a reaction to pleasure. It is extremely important to always remember and take into account that some serious diseases, pathological conditions, and neurological disorders also have constantly dilated pupils as one of the main symptoms. Therefore, if you observe chronically constantly dilated pupils in your cat with sufficient lighting and no obvious reasons for strong excitement, stress, fear, or pain, this is a very significant, undeniable reason to immediately consult a veterinarian to rule out possible hidden health problems requiring immediate diagnosis and treatment. And finally, logically closing the circle of our observations of the amazing behavior of cats, we will pay special attention to one of the most direct and seemingly simple, but at the same time incredibly multifaceted and informative manifestations of cat behavior: their focused, attentive gaze. Why do cats look at us? There can be a great many reasons for this action, and each of them carries its own unique subtext and hidden meaning. Most often, when a cat looks you straight in the eyes, intently and without averting its gaze, it is attempting to establish communication with you, to non-verbally communicate something. If it makes any sounds at the same time, quietly meows, purrs, or gently murmurs, and sits nearby, for example, with its empty food bowl, this may be a completely clear, unambiguous signal that it is hungry and is eagerly awaiting the immediate filling of the bowl with fresh food. Cats also actively use their gaze to demonstrate their deep affection, sincere love, and trust to you. When a cat looks at you with half-closed eyelids, squinting, and slowly, demonstratively blinks, this is not just a look, but a real, unconditional cat kiss, an eloquent expression of the deepest tenderness, complete relaxation, and absolute trust. This means that it is literally crazy about you, has the warmest feelings for you, and feels completely, absolutely safe next to you. A gaze can also be a manifestation of an urgent need for your support and assistance. Your cat perfectly, on an instinctive level, understands that its well-being, comfort, and safety depend largely, if not entirely, solely on you, its beloved owner and reliable keeper. If it feels frightened, is experiencing severe stress, anxiety, is cold, feels depressed, lonely, or is experiencing physical pain, it may well just sit and stare at you, silently or accompanied by a gentle, pleading meow, sincerely hoping to receive the necessary help, consolation, support, or simply your comforting presence from you. On the other hand, a cat's gaze, accompanied by a tense body posture, ears pressed tightly to the head, strongly dilated pupils, or threatening warning sounds, such as a sharp hiss or a low guttural growl, indicates a completely different, directly opposite state. The cat feels under obvious threat, is in a strong defensive position, and is morally and physically ready to defend itself, repelling an attack. Thus, even in such a seemingly simple, mundane action as a gaze, cats demonstrate the truly amazing complexity, depth, and versatility of their emotional world and their communicative intentions. In conclusion of our fascinating exploration of feline mysteries, it is worth returning once again to the poignant question of touch, in particular to the possibility or impossibility of scratching the belly. We have already mentioned earlier that the demonstration of the abdomen by a human is an unconditional sign of the highest trust. But why then do some cats absolutely, categorically dislike it when this seemingly open area of the body is subjected to stroking, scratching, or any other tactile contact? The reason lies in the exceptional hypertrophied sensitivity of this particular zone. As mentioned earlier, the abdominal area in cats is the most vulnerable, most sensitive, and least protected part of their body, because it is under the thin, soft abdominal wall that vital, critical internal organs for survival are located, which in the wild constantly need maximum protection from predators, other animals, or any potential physical damage. Moreover, numerous scientific studies have convincingly shown that the hair follicles located on the cat's abdomen have a very high specific sensitivity to touch. For some cats, any touch to this area may be not just unpleasant or causing slight irritation, but even excessively stimulating, causing severe discomfort, painful sensations, or even a sensation close to pain due to the hypersensitivity of the nerve endings located there. Thus, a cat's refusal to allow you to scratch its belly is not a whim, not a caprice, and not a harmfulness, but either a deeply ingrained instinctive desire to protect its most vulnerable zone, or a direct physical reaction to sensory irritation caused by increased sensitivity. Understanding these subtle nuances and peculiarities of feline nature allows us to build more harmonious, respectful, and mutually understanding relationships with our amazing, mysterious pets, accepting them as they really are, with all their unique needs, powerful instincts, and unique body language, which we, as their owners, must strive to study and understand.